so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life, well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the one who will be here with you each and every Wednesday, interviewing a different consciousness changemaker that is also out there working tirelessly to help catalyze change and expand awareness all across spaceship Earth. On the other 4 weekdays, you can hear me discussing topics such as my favorite thought-provoking quotes, reading and discussing wisdom from empowering books, playing clips from various inspirational spiritual teachers, sharing a bit of mysterious news, taking questions from the audience, and essentially digging into any other mind-expansive topics that will help keep your soul fed by tuning you into positive vibrations on a consistent basis. And you guys have heard me say that if I ever run ads on the show, it will only be with a company that I fully support because I believe their intention is to make a positive difference in the world. Well, I'm pleased to announce that day has arrived and that this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's interview episode, I'm extremely excited to have Adam Roa here with me on the show. Adam is a spoken word poet, coach, and host of the Deep Dive podcast. Hey there, Adam. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, Brandon. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, looking forward to diving deep with you today. Right. I'm gonna open up with the same question I always open up with, though, before we get in to everything, and that is: you're in an elevator, guy next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Oh, my passion is reminding people that they are seen, heard, and loved.
That's a good passion. I would say that's something that every single one of us longs for, to be heard, to be seen. Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah. I feel like most of the woes that have that are existing on this planet right now are the results of people not feeling that.
Right.
Yeah, feeling lost. So we can just remind people of that. Then a lot of those other things will take care of themselves.
Absolutely. Well, let's, why don't you give us a little peek into your mind and your story and how you arrived at that perspective. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. So my dad's from the Philippines, and when I was growing up, I was very much raised on the idea of the American dream that he had come over with, and that led to a lot of external validation being needed in my life, whether that was material things or accolades or whatever it is. And I was really lucky in a massive way to reach what I considered the pinnacle of that in my high school experience, which was winning Homecoming King. It was oh my gosh, that's all the movies.
That is the American dream all in one swoop, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so like for me, being such a late bloomer, I was a really small kid when I entered high school, like really small, 73 pounds my freshman year.
Oh, wow.
And so to then my senior year when Homecoming King, it was like, I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve in high school somehow. And
that's funny.
What's funny about that is, the next day when I woke up, I felt exactly the same. There was all the anger and fear and frustration and self-doubt. And on top of that, I no longer had this idea that if I achieved this dream, I would feel different. So the combination of that led me searching, and I started, asking all the questions, mainly why? Why do I feel this way? How do I improve this? And that led kind of my personal development at a pretty early age, I think for a lot of people, which is age 18-ish. Besides, like my parents giving me Rich Dad, Poor Dad or The Secret to read growing up. Right. And then that all came to a head when I wound up in a ayahuasca circle after one of the most difficult years of my life and needed some help. And it blew me open to the world of kind of spirituality. And the combination of those two things, the personal development, like make it happen for myself mentality plus the spirituality has been a game changer for me. It's completely shifted my life and led me to where I am now, where I go about accomplishing my mission of reminding people that they're seen, heard, and loved. I do that in a number of different ways, but finding that mission has been really about finding myself and being okay and being happy with who I am and what I'm about and what I can do well and what I'm here to do on this planet.
Beautiful. As you're speaking, it makes me instantly think so much of my own son. I have an 18-year-old, and there's so much similarities. He entered into 11th grade. He's a senior, and he entered into 11th grade. Always kind of not nearly as social as I was as a kid, and very smart, very sweet. I'm so fortunate, so blessed. But he entered into 11th grade, and he was like, I really want to get in with the cool kids at school. He goes to an art school, Orange County School of the Arts, and I want to get in with this group of people. And he didn't really have a big circle of friends. And fast forward to now, he's close to graduating, and he now has, experienced it all. He's in like he's the cool kid, right? And he has all these friends and all, it's just been a great couple years for him. And he's same sort of story. He's like, Dad, I kind of went into it a couple years ago wanting to be this. I've experienced exactly what I set out to do. I took the it girl to the dance and, the whole thing, kind of the homecoming king kind of vibe. Not exactly, but you know what I mean. And so he said, it's great and all, but it's not, I realize that's not where it's at. And now, funny enough, he's saying to me pretty regularly, he's like, yeah, I really want to do ayahuasca. And he's starting to pursue acting. He's just decided to pursue acting, and I know that's been a part of your path as well. So I'm like, okay, you guys need to meet. Like, there's definitely some similar energy here.
Wow, that's amazing. First of all, that you have the kind of relationship with your son where all that, and him wanting to do ayahuasca is something he can talk to you about. I just want to commend you because I didn't grow up in a household that felt that way at all. And so I think that's incredible. So just kudos to you.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it's been, I guess I've been anything but a conventional parent. I always jokingly say I with him because he's very much an old soul energy. Even from, the time he was like 5 years old, 3 years old, people would talk to him and be blown away by how meticulously he spoke and how, he just has that sort of presence about him. And I always jokingly say, I'm like, Bradley, I'm pretty sure you've been the dad in a lot more lifetimes than I have. I feel much more like the kid, and he's such like the old man. But no, he's really, really amazing. And, I just had someone write me this morning as well. Hey, Brandon, I'm thinking of doing ayahuasca for the first time. Have you done any shows on it? And of course I have, talked about it here and there, and maybe one episode that was completely dedicated to it a long time ago, having done 5 journeys or so myself. And so, yeah, it's something that, and he's not been one that's wanting to go out and do a lot of putting his hand in the cookie jar, so to speak, with different substances and things, certainly less than I've been. But with ayahuasca, he's very drawn to, and he really has been, saying, that he feels like that's something he should experience. So,
yeah, well, I mean, as you probably know, like once it calls to you, it's really, I find that the danger really is when people just hear about it and think it's the solution to all their problems, and they just want to try it because it might be trendy and people they know have done it. But then there's, in general, I don't know that I've ever heard of a scenario where they felt called to it and it wasn't for a very specific reason that reveals itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Curious. So, just maybe even since we ended up down this rabbit hole right out of the gate, well, I mean, what was your experience like? What, having a listener literally an hour ago write me asking questions about it, and I'm sure they'll tune into this broadcast. Maybe you can shed a little light on what your experience has been like with that particular plant medicine.
Yeah, it would be difficult for me to summarize. I've sat probably about 15 times. So summarizing all of them, it would be difficult, but I would say that life-changing, 100% life-changing. I was more atheist than I was spiritual, and I had no draw at all to any of the kind of new age community. And all of that was opened up to me from the very first journey. It was just completely, so like now it's really interesting because when I first started with the journeys and sitting in ceremony, I would get all of these. It felt like going to school for me. Like I felt like I was every time I went in with intentions, and I would get like lessons. And then I wouldn't sit again until I feel like I'd applied those lessons and now was at a different stage, like, okay, I did calculus 1. Now it's time for calculus 2, and just keep piling on new stuff. Or if like currently now, it's when I feel like I've been working through something in my life for a while, and like for maybe a few months, I haven't been able to kind of crack the code. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to ask for a little bit of support. And what's fascinating about that to me is when I started, I was not really a coach yet. I've been a coach of some type for since I was like 16, and I was teaching swim lessons, but never in the personal development realm. And I didn't want people to know that I sat with ayahuasca or did any psychedelics of any kind, because I felt like it would invalidate me. I felt like people would think that, oh, well, now I can't take him seriously because he just did this drug or crazy thing, right? And now I have recognized that it has played such a massive role in my development, both spiritually and also just professionally, that it would be a disservice for me not to acknowledge that to people who are on their own journeys. And so as soon as my partner of 8 years, Melinda, and I kind of acknowledged that and said, we're now willing to speak about it, more doors even started opening up. We were brought down to Rhythmia. Are you familiar with Rhythmia?
No.
So Rhythmia is in Costa Rica, and it's the first of its kind. It actually has the first government license to perform ayahuasca ceremonies.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like a resort vibe, but it's considered a medical facility. So there's doctors on staff, and they check out your blood and all these things before you're even allowed to sit. And so they're kind of bridging that gap of people who are interested but don't want to go to like Peru and do it really the indigenous way and want that kind of westernized comfort. And so we were brought down to facilitate not the ceremonies themselves, but they have personal development during the day. So we led workshops during the day, and then people would sit in the evening. And so it was really amazing to see like that opportunity open up as soon as we like opened ourselves up to it energetically.
Sure. Yeah, and you made a point that I think of my good friend Shane, who's done a lot of ayahuasca journeys over the last couple years, and he always talks about that as he got into, and he's probably done 30 plus at least, I would say, and he's like, Brandon, as I did more and more, it was like compounding. It was like, what I would learn in one experience, it'd be like 100-fold, by the time I got into doing a lot of them. And of course, that's not a path for everyone. For some people, it might not be part of their path at all. For others, it may be a one-time thing. For a lot of people, though, it seems like going back, again and again, and then getting even deeper and more profound sort of realizations and truths and clearings.
Yeah. It's really tough to say because it's such an individual journey. There are some people who I know have sat like once and that was it. Like they're good. And they have other avenues that they're pursuing. Maybe it's yoga or breath work or something that is very much a part of their journey. But ayahuasca, after that one, was not it. And for me, the first time I sat was maybe 3 years ago. And so I've sat 15 times over 3 years. And that includes a 1-year break where she essentially told me, and I say it's the spirit of ayahuasca, which is feminine grandmother spirit.
So a lot of people have the experience of actually interacting with this spirit of ayahuasca when they're in the journey space, right? Yeah,
pretty much for me, every time I'm in communication. Very much like I've had a number of journeys where I can just ask questions and receive answers. So it's not everyone's experience. Everyone's completely unique in that way. And I will say that there's a lot of different types of medicine and not just plant medicine. I'm a big believer in breath work and somatic healing and all of that stuff, in addition to the San Pedros and the ayahuascas and the ibogas and psilocybin and all of that. It's kind of learning to trust your intuition about what feels right.
Right.
And so touching on your point with your friend Shane, for me, I was told, don't do any more, by ayahuasca, don't come back with more questions until you've applied what you've learned. And so I didn't come back for a year. And I feel like every time it will build on what's happening in your life. And one of the biggest, I guess, pitfalls that I see currently happening is there's no integration. So in a traditional, like indigenous tribal society, you're going to have the shaman and the entire village who supports you in that growth. And you'll go and you'll do a ceremony and you'll have these questions and things, and the shaman can answer those questions for you. And the shaman can help guide you through the next few months of integrating that. And in the Western world, we're having ayahuasca enter, and you're having people like blown open on a Saturday night, and then they're back to work on Monday. And it's like you're in a circle of influence with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your job, and the things that you do on a day-to-day basis that has a particular energy to it. It has a particular mindset to it. And for you to be blown open on that Saturday night and then go back into that familiar mindset on Monday, it's really, I feel like it's a real disservice to what's possible with the medicine.
Right.
And so the integration of that is a big part of what I do in my work. I've curated a number of like 5-day retreats where there is some medicine work, but just as important as the ceremonies themselves are the ability to now take those lessons and apply them to your life. And in my one-on-one coaching, when people go and do medicine, then they come back and they have me, for example, to have those weekly calls or the email support or whatever it is to help them integrate back into their day-to-day life, because it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much across the board, it seems, what everyone comes away with, and certainly every facilitator I've ever talked to, is integration, because it sort of blasts you open, and all this stuff, of course, unique to every person, as you said, but all these experiences, all these realizations, all this clearing happens, and it's not something that you just process in 10 minutes and then go about your day. And I think that makes a lot of sense, even carving out time for yourself after having the experience so that you can integrate. And of course, having someone that you can lean on is really good too.
Absolutely. And it's just, I mean, it's a part of this kind of westernized culture where,
quick fix,
quick fix, people pop, Advils or ibuprofen or even like hydrocodone and oxy and all of these things, these pills, these westernized medications without even really thinking about it, right? Like it's just normal.
Right.
When I grew up, it was like, oh, you got sore muscles, your wrist hurts, take 2 ibuprofen. And
right.
And so when we hear, oh, ayahuasca is like this medicine, it's a substance, our relationship to substances is something that I think gets to shift and often shifts very quickly after an intense, like even just a mushroom experience. People who have done mushrooms and like that was so intense and then don't touch it for like 12 years because they're scarred by it.
Right.
That's one of those examples of like when you recognize the power that's available there, I think you get to treat it with a amount of respect.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, big difference between what this sort of work, this type of work is doing versus the Western, here's ibuprofen. It's like treating the effect and trying to gloss it over and, numb the pain, as opposed to, with ayahuasca or, any of these plant medicines, it's like it's going to the root, to the cause. And who knows with each person what's going to be, sort of lurking there to the cause of any of their blockages is going to be different.
Yeah. I had a shaman from South America explain it to me once as it's just a mindset difference where essentially their mindset is let's have like one dark night of the soul and then be done with it. Like let's have one really intense experience, but then be done with it kind of forever. And in the Western culture, it seems like let's treat the symptoms to make the pain as bearable as possible for as long as it needs to.
Yes. Yeah. My friend, who's been facilitating ayahuasca journeys for a couple decades, and actually one of the first podcasts I did, Pablo Miller, if you guys any listeners want to go back and check it out, very fascinating discussion I had with him. And he talked about it to me as, sure, you can go to a shrink or any of these things, and it's sort of like the slow dealing with the issues or getting to the underlying issues. And it may be a 20-year journey, and you kind of, he used his hands to show like a flower kind of blooming. You may go from this, closed hands to sort of a bloom over 20 years, or you take plant medicine, you take ayahuasca, and in one night you go from this to this, right? So and that journey is not for the faint of heart, but for those who are ready, it certainly can be such a powerful, transformative thing.
Yeah. And if you think about that, even just what you just said, right? Like, think of how much pain and drama and figuring yourself out, like we're talking about high school earlier in this conversation, and like all that I went through in just the 4 years of high school, and the stuff that I'm processing from that even now today. And like, then if you go to ayahuasca and you open all these boxes and all these doors, that's a lot that you now have to recalibrate to. And so it's not for everyone because you can unpack and unlock some things. I've had some experiences where I've had like memories that had been completely locked away and forgotten that came back up. And now that it's not like it's done just because you had the experience. Now is actually the part like we're talking about. How do you then adjust your life based on what you've realized about yourself and about your past and about who you want to be? How do you do that? And that's where I think why we're even seeing this like huge growth in the personal development industry, where you're seeing like, it seems like everybody and anybody's a life coach. And and that's great. I have no problem with that. I feel like if someone feels like they can help others, that's awesome. And with that being said, there's a lot of lack of integration that I see very much. So my big thing is embodiment. That's like a key word of just my life. I love meeting people who I feel embody the message, whatever their message is. If it's embodied, that is so inspiring to me. And I want to be around more and more people who are like that.
Yeah, I feel you on that. It's one of the things, of course, doing a show, and of course you have your podcast and you're doing all kinds of work in this field. It's one of the things that I've been very aware of. I have people say to me all the time, "Oh, have you thought about coaching or this or that?" And I'm very slow to do it for that very reason. It's like, I feel like embodying it is so important, and being as authentic as possible, showing, hey, here's where I'm weak, here's where I'm strong, here's what I think, here's what I know, here's what I don't know, and so many people, I'm just really reluctant to start trying to, and having, as someone who's, made a living in sales and things like that, it's like with this, it's like sacred to me. So I've just kept it where, no real marketing, no real, almost maybe even to a fault. And at some point I know it will transform into more, but I've been like very slow to, sort of, I don't know. And I don't know if it's just something in me that every time I see it's being marketed in any way, I feel like it loses some value. Right. But then again, I understand everyone needs to make a living too. And I've been blessed with having other ways that, to generate money and things like that. So that something, that I'm curious what you think about that in conjunction with your statement, and how does one who feels drawn to teach and to coach and to do so in a way that it doesn't lose the authenticity of the whole, the whole thing, if that makes sense.
No, I totally get what you're saying. It was a big part of my journey as well. And for example, I've prided myself in the fact that until like 2 weeks ago, since becoming a coach, I'd never even done any Facebook ads, like no online marketing really at all. And what's fascinating about that is that's more telltale of my relationship and my own inner stuff than anything else, because the truth is that the fact that I'm taking pride in not using that marketing shows me that I see that marketing stuff as being that's taking advantage of people in a way, or it's not authentic. But at the same time, if I get 20 people in a group coaching program as opposed to 10, that's 10 additional people that I'm able to really powerfully impact.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And so, like I said, it's kind of our own relationship. Like you were saying, you didn't know if it was just kind of your own thing. Well, I think that it's everything. I take everything in life as a neutral event, and our response to it is entirely our own internal thing.
Absolutely.
And so the marketing stuff is something I'm adjusting my relationship to. And one of the biggest things is learning that, that marketing will help my message reach more people. And I'm committed to showing up in excellence. I'm committed to embodying that message. And so I guess going back to your situation, it's really encouraging to me to see how sacred you treat it. And so if you go into any sort of venture as a coach, recognizing that as long as you can stay in your alignment, as long as you can stay true to what it is that you're here to do and your intention remains pure, then people will resonate with that. The people who are meant to find you will find you, because it's your message is not just your message. It's coming from a higher place. And so you have people on your team, you know what I mean? Like whether it's God or source or universe or just
your spirit team, right?
Yeah. Whatever you want to call it, when you're aligned and you're allowing that message from all of that energy to flow through you and out into the world, you're not having to create it in the traditional sense. You will find an audience that resonates with it because it's a frequency game.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I just did an interview a few weeks ago I'm going blank on his name. Is so good, and he talked about the law of emergence. I got to look it up real quick just because he was so good too. And he talked a lot about this. Like you're just allowing Derek Rydell.
Okay, yeah.
He's such an amazing guy. You should get him on your show, actually. And he talks a lot about this, allowing things to emerge, kind of the difference between law of emergence and law of attraction. And once you sort of just remove any of the barriers and allow things to naturally flow forth, how powerful that approach is. And maybe go back and listen or have him on your show even better. He is really, really amazing at talking about that very thing. Now you have some really interesting ideas and things that you teach. And I want to dig in a little bit to some of those. One, I mean, just right out of the gate, the Slinky Effect. Tell me, what is the Slinky Effect?
Yeah, the Slinky Effect is a company that my beloved Melinda Cohen and I started, and it essentially embodies how we feel that healthy relationships move through the world. And it's like a slinky where you have two ends to this slinky. And so let's say it's a romantic partnership. When one person has some sort of growth, let's say they do ayahuasca, and they have this massive shift and growth. It's like that slinky moving forward. And that end of the slinky now can pull on the other end and launch it forward on its own accord. Or if that person doesn't choose to be pulled forward by the other's growth, what happens is then you have a ball and chain. You have this one end that's moving forward, and the other end is just stretching and stretching and stretching and feeling more disconnected and further apart until eventually it breaks. And so allowing yourself to see the other person's growth and have it motivate you, because generally what happens is that person who gets motivated goes a step further than the person who motivated them. They take what they've learned and they're like, oh, and then they like go and read their own books.
Leapfrog.
Yeah. And it's a leapfrog situation. And we see that that's how it also works. You're in relationship with everyone and everything around you at all times. So it's not just romantic partnerships. We're talking about all human interaction and also your relationship to the universe. It operates as a slinky. When you set your intention and you take action with that intention, the universe goes, oh, okay. And it catches up to you and actually then goes a step further and starts leaving you breadcrumbs on how to get to the next stage. Right. And so you're leapfrogging with the universe itself. And oftentimes the universe is leaving you clues and synchronicities and breadcrumbs and opportunities. And if you're not taking them, it's like we were talking about with that slinky that's not moving and it's just stretching further and further away. You're getting more and more disconnected from what's available to you. And it's a big part of like intuition. I'm currently on my third week of a 4-week course that I launched about unlocking your inner artist. And intuition is such a big part of how I move through life. And the thing about intuition is if you're not using it, you can lose it. And not forever. It's not going to permanently go away, but you're going to lose your connection to it. You're not going to be able to tell when it's actually even speaking to you. And it's a tool that you can strengthen. You can develop a relationship with your intuition for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was looking on I can't remember where, your website, I believe, and I saw something that you said that I thought was really interesting, and you just made me think of it with a comment that you made. On your site, it said, every moment in our external life is reflecting back to us something that is happening internally, whether we know it or not. And you teach people the process by which our reality is being created and help them to learn how to take conscious control over the creation process. So I'd like to hear you speak a little bit more on that, because that's something I talk about all the time on the show, how, everywhere you go, you're there waiting for yourself, essentially, right? It is all a reflection. Yeah, it's good, huh? And I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Well, my foundational thing, I say this to everyone who's, I'll get on a call with someone who wants to start a one-on-one coaching program, and I'll say, listen, we can disagree on a lot of things, the only thing that we have to agree on in order for us to work together is the foundational belief that we are creating our reality.
Yeah.
And so if you do not believe that you are creating it, then there's a part of you that is allowing for what I call or what's regularly called victim consciousness. And victim consciousness means, oh, life is happening to me. And what that does is, yeah, sure, it might make you feel a little better about, the fact that you got laid off from your job, or you're struggling financially, or you haven't been able to find that ideal romantic partnership, whatever it is. It might allow you a little bit of wiggle room to feel like, this isn't my fault. But what it also does is it takes away your power. You're no longer able to say, I can change and shift anything, because you've accepted a premise that some of it's out of your control.
Right.
And so that foundational belief of I'm creating my reality, and therefore I'm in control of my experience, is a necessary foundational building block for taking control of your life. And
right.
And that's hard, because that means accepting the negative, air quotes, aspects of your experience along with the positive ones. And so I think that the foundational part of that is recognizing that our subconscious is processing, 99.99% of our experience at any given time. And the conscious mind is severely limited in its processing power compared to the unconscious mind. And so the reality that's being created around us is massively, massively created by our unconscious mind. And so learning to tap into the unconscious mind, learning to reprogram the unconscious mind, learning to bring some of that unconscious belief patterning into your conscious mind in order for you to have more conscious control over that experience is a big aspect of what I do. Because if you just walked through the world needing to consciously create every single moment, it would require so much brain power that it would just be unsustainable. So having your unconscious work for you instead of against you, I think, is really important.
Yeah, it makes me think of this. Have you seen this video that's been getting a lot of views, a lot of shares? That's just it's kind of strange, but really beautiful too. Where it's this like weird claymation looking, all white claymation being with like a really big butt, and it's like, hi, stranger. Have you seen this yet? And
no,
it's talking about oh man, I can't believe it hasn't popped up on your feed yet. I saw it like a week ago, and now I saw it again yesterday, and it has like 100 million views or something.
Oh, wow.
It's really, I'll share it with you. It's really fascinating because it's, in the video, it talks about how much energy it takes to create and how tiring it can be. And it's just people are just kind of weird geeking out on this thing because it's really beautiful, but really weird and kind of creepy. And it's like touches on all these things. So I don't know. I just thought of that because
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'll have to share it with you.
Totally up my alley. I
loved it. Some people are like, this is so weird. I'm like, whoever made this is actually, they're genius because they're touching on they're just so, you can tell how deeply aware they are of so many different things, from the sexual thing to the, things that we think internally to, they're just touching on so much in like a minute. It's so good.
I'd really love to see that. I think we're at a really important time where, we've been in our logical, analytical thinking mind as like a collective for so long now that it's time to come back into balance with our like empathetic, spiritual mindset. And in order to do that, my approach is bridging that gap. Not, there are people who are very much in that spiritual realm, who operate primarily out of the critical thinking, logical and analytical. are like, I don't resonate with that because that's not how I live my life. I can't just like go into a forest and take off my clothes and meditate and you know what I mean? Like I think I'm with you.
I think we're similar characters in that regard. I feel very much like a bridge sort of energy, you know, and the ability to bridge those worlds.
Yeah, it's hugely important. And that's why I think that it's so awesome that we're seeing so much science and technology that's starting to confirm what's you know, spiritual philosophy has been saying for eons. And but at the same time, even move us in that direction. Like the more technologically advanced we get, the closer we are coming to seeing these spiritual philosophies being scientifically proven. We're not moving further apart.
Right. It's almost like technology, science and spirituality are doing a dance, I say, that is really unprecedented at this time in our evolution. And as technology is almost like this medium for us to merge with the next dimension, it seems like, where, you know, everything is sort of created instantaneously. And it's like, it almost seems like feels to me as if technology is the bridge from this dimension to, you think of, you know, the astral plane or some other, the beyond, you know, where we go when we die, and you can think things and they instantly manifest, and you can create, you know, instant feedback, right? Whereas in the third dimension, there's typically a delay, which I think creates a lot of the confusion with people understanding the truth that they're actually the ones creating what they're seeing today is essentially a reflection of a vibrational offering from yesterday or last year or, you know, what have you. But that lag seems to be where it's lost, you know, the connecting the dots. And I feel like that is sort of that gap is closing.
Yeah, I think that circumstantially what's showing up in your experience can definitely have a lag. And on top of that, your experience in any given moment is instantaneous. So when you're so you did something a year ago where you quit your job because you hated it and didn't take any action to find new sources of income or whatever. And so a year later, you're like looking at your credit card bills and you're like, wow, I'm in a really tough financial state.
Right.
And your experience of that state, again, like that tough financial state, to me, neutral. Your experience of that is instantaneously being created by you. Right. And so it's this wonderful, like infinitely intricate game, this life that we're leading, and learning to love it as a game and figure out more and more, like, it's almost like, you know, those massive like scavenger hunt type games they'll do in like an entire city, and you like find clues, and it's like one of those where as we're going through life, we're finding clues on how to make our experience more enjoyable or make our lifestyle more in alignment with the way we want to lead it, or the opposite. You know what I mean? We're just getting clues on how we can create it the way that we want to. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite the adventure we're on. And, you know, one of the things that you speak about is, you know, everyone being an artist. And I couldn't agree more. You know, we are the creator and created rolled into one, I would say. Source, you know, people refer to God as the creator, and God's such a charged word, but, you know, I like to use source. You know, we are one with that source. And what does that source do? It creates. And when is it most fulfilled? When it's creating. You know, when is it not fulfilled? When that creativity is cut off. And so I think that's really great, as one of the things that you help to foster and facilitate is people unlocking their inner artists. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah. I think that, you know, being an artist means creating from nothing. And we're all doing that. Like your thoughts, if you believe thoughts are things, you're creating from nothing, essentially. If you're speaking words, those words didn't exist before you created them. And on top of that, like if you're an entrepreneur and you started a business, even if it doesn't seem like some kind of spiritual hippie business, it's just a business. Well, you created that. You had an idea. I want to create something. That's artistry. And so getting away from this idea, I didn't think that I was an artist, and I was an actor and a director. And before that, I worked at an ad agency, and like all of these things, none of them felt like artistry to me. They were just the thing. I was acting. And yes, acting is considered an art, but I don't feel myself an artist. I'm an actor. And then I started doing spoken word poetry, and someone called me a spoken word artist. And it was the first time that someone had called me an artist of any form. And something just clicked in my brain. I'm like, whoa, I am an artist. And I started looking at all these different areas in my life that I create, and how the biggest like joy I get in life is creating and supporting people in creating their ideal life or their ideal business or whatever it is. So creation is a huge part of just who I am and what I'm here to do on this planet. And unlocking your inner artist, that 4-week course that I'm in the middle of, came out of so many people seeing content that I have produced over the last year. And it's only been 1 year, by the way. It's been 1 year, and my content without any Facebook ads or funnels or marketing of any kind has reached over 1 million views on Facebook.
Wow. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It was, again, just kind of creating from an aligned space. And so now I get to step into what does that look like to create from an aligned space, because you learned how to do that, and add in the stuff that actually works from a logical, analytical marketing standpoint. So that'll be kind of my next step into, like, we just hired, we just have started talking to people to hire to help handle like email campaigns and stuff like that, which we've never done before. And I'm excited for that chapter, because I've kind of adjusted my relationship to what all that means. And I'm also really excited because what I believe in the truth of my being is that these messages of love, connection, creation, empowerment, these are messages that want to come through from, you use the word source, or God, or Allah, or Palladian,
higher self,
like whatever you want to say. But there's a higher vibration available to us, and it's simply a matter of tuning our internal transistor radios to that station and creating vessels, creating channels for those messages to come through into this world that we're living in. And so my highest excitement right now is basically helping people become the vessels to allow that messaging to come out into the world.
All right. Well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many, many years now, which is why they are the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting the Positive Head podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you guys an example, on April 24th on the show Buzzsaw, Dennis McKenna, who is the brother of the world's most well-known psychonaut, Terrence McKenna, makes a guest appearance to discuss the spiritual implications and mystical experiences that psychedelic substances can induce. I mean, it'd be pretty hard to be more up my alley, right? And as you all hear me constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Beautiful. Beautiful. And so that's, you have a 4-week course that you just launched that is centered all around helping people to have their inner artist emerge, I would say, to reference back to Derek right off.
I do this really long, I'll do a short version of it, but I do this longer breakdown of it on my podcast on synchronicity. There's one that's called Synchronicity that people can tune into. It's the deep dive with Adam Roa. And so what what I see it as is this metaphor with a garden hose, where we want to essentially funnel, like water, funnel these messages down from wherever they exist into Earth, into this third dimensional reality. I believe that creativity is something that we access. It's not something that we generate. And
absolutely.
And so to do that, think of yourself like a hose. The first step is you get to untangle and unkink the hose so anything can flow through, because some of us have had our creative, intuitive hoses just thrown in, the garden shed for so long and not used that it's just a knotted mess. And so week one, I took people through like unkinking, unclogging that hose. The second step is then, okay, now you get to hook it up to where the water comes out and like create that connection and start to allow water to flow through. And then the third step to that is, okay, now how do we increase that flow? How do you turn that water up? And then the fourth step is, what do you put on the other end of the hose where the water comes out? Is it like a sprinkler? Is it one of those gun nozzle things? Is it using your thumb? Like, what is the unique way that it enters the world through you?
Pressure washer.
Exactly.
3,000 PSI. Go big or go home.
That's the way that you probably approach your life. Just that answer right there.
That was my first entrepreneurial business at 17, was a pressure washer business. So yes.
Amazing. That's the way that I see it. And then you now have this creative juice of water that can flow through you and then water the seeds of that business that you want to make, or that presentation that you want to lead, or that film that you want to produce. Like, all of those different seeds of ideas get to be watered by messaging from a higher frequency. And then it's not like you forcing it. You have a whole team. You have an infinite stream available to you. And so that 4-week course, like I said, I'm in week 3, based on whether or not I get a lot of people reaching out wanting to do it. I've had some, but if I get enough interest, I may relaunch it, in another 4 weeks from now or something. As of right now, it came strictly out of people who had been asking me, hey, how did you create this? Like, where did you get this idea? How do I get people?
See, I love that. It's so organic. It's like you didn't even try and package something or put something together. It very organically arose. And I feel like that is that emergence principle versus sort of, okay, I've got to force my way to make money in the space, or what have you. I think that's beautiful. And it seems like you're very much in the flow when it's coming that way. People just are kind of like, hey, let me tell you what you should be doing, right?
Yeah, and it takes a lot of the stress. It doesn't take all the stress off. Like, there's still the part of you that wants people to sign up and want it to be worth your time and energy investment. And I get that. And a recognition, like, it does take some of the stress off when people are like, hey, do you offer anything that like helps? I'm an aspiring filmmaker. I'm an aspiring poet. I'm an aspiring writer or entrepreneur. Do you have anything specifically that helps me tune into that? You're like, oh, that's interesting, because there's how you're being received in the external world, like how people are viewing you is not something that you're going to be aware of unless you're actively getting that feedback constantly. Right? Like, putting yourself in the mind of what someone sees when they look at you is just, it's impossible. So having people reach out and say, hey, I noticed this, I would really love something along these lines, is very valuable, because there are aspects that I'm not even really in tune with. Usually I'm not aware that, oh, people are looking at me as an artist, and therefore I should offer something for artists. I had no idea. And then what does even an artist mean? I see someone who launches a tech company as an artist. So,
totally. Yeah. Having been an serial entrepreneur my whole life, and it's a very creative process. And for me, I found growing a company from myself to 100 employees at one point. I had so much, it was so much more creative early on. And then as it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we became like, a sizable company, I found it was less creative and harder for me to stay engaged because I wasn't stimulating that part of myself.
Yeah, well, it's steering a sailboat versus steering an aircraft carrier, right? Like the bigger something gets, the just longer it takes to get all those parts to move together.
Right.
But that's something like you've talked about coaching for yourself, that what you've done, taking an entrepreneurial company from yourself to 100 employees is something that you uniquely can offer. Like I've never done that. Right. And so
I've considered, and I've been, and the reason I ask and I've talked about this a lot, because this has been on my mind from a personal perspective. Like, should I be? Am I missing helping people? And, I obviously have some of these internal kind of struggles with it, as I've sort of pointed out. But yeah, I mean, to go from, essentially it's attaining what 1 in 10,000 entrepreneurs do. That's getting to over $10 million in revenue in a year. Plus, it's very rare, right? Which I've done. So yeah, I've definitely thought a lot about it, and it certainly would be a good way for me to contribute. Then again, it's one of those things. Being involved in several entrepreneurial ventures, even now, you can do anything, you can't do everything. Where is my time best spent, and how am I serving the most? And that's certainly something that I've questioned a lot lately.
Yeah, when I started coaching, I was just like, I can help anyone. I can make anyone's life better if they just want to. And like, there's truth to that. There definitely is. There's some foundational stuff that I think is applicable to basically everyone. And recognizing, like, if there's someone who wants help bringing their business from 10 employees to 100 employees, you've done that. I haven't done that. And I think it's important that as coaches, all coaches should recognize what's their zone of genius. And I think that there's a tendency to want to be very general with it, because we're like, well, I don't want to like cut off this section of the market, right? And
right.
The truth is that your greatest strengths are what should be used to help others. And our weaknesses are not weaknesses in that, like, oh, don't ever talk about them, hide them in a closet. They're where we get to get supported. And so my support right now, as I'm scaling my business, is, okay, I get to hire people who have more expertise in areas like Facebook advertising and email campaign. Like, that's not my area of expertise. Even with a marketing degree, I've when I moved out to LA to be an actor originally, that I shut off that part of my brain. And so I would have to like do all the research and that's not where I want to spend my time currently. And that's okay.
You're smart focusing on that, because, that's my best piece of advice, is realize what you're good at and what you're not, and go find the people that, any great leader is essentially going to find people who can do what they can't, or are better at, particular tasks and areas. And that's the most important thing that you can do.
Think about the disservice that would that would be if I were to be advertising out there, like, I can help you grow your business to 100 employees. Like, I've never done it. And so I would rather you say, this is what I've done. And then if that's what that person wants, they will be better served by you. And my vision for this planet is everyone living their highest excitement from their like most optimal state of creation. And so they can get that from you better than from me. And from my end, like, I openly state, like, what I've done is reach 1 million people with my content in a year without any marketing. And I have created a lifestyle where I got to travel the world for 7 months last year. I became a full-time, like, I decided to leave my other job and become a full-time personal development coach in December of 2015, December of 2015. And I just made the decision along with my girlfriend and had like 2 clients at the time, and I said, you know what? We say that we can create anything we want. Well,
Yep.
I think we need to prove that, not just to others, but to ourselves. Yeah. And so we left and traveled for 7 months, having just started those businesses full time, because we believe that anything's possible. And the business side of me goes, what are you doing? You're leaving your market. You're leaving like consistent internet. You're going to 10-day silent meditation retreats, like where you're not going to be online at all. Like that's not a smart business move, and you need to create income because you just left your other job. Well, I don't believe there's any hard and fast rules. I believe that you can create anything you want, and I've shown that in my own life. And so that's what my area is that I help people with, is create your ideal life. And do it from this kind of spiritual co-create with God source perspective, which is why the majority of my clients wind up being financially successful individuals who are just like, there's something more. There's another aspect that I haven't tapped into, and I didn't find it on this side of success. And I'd like you to help me tune into that.
Well, referencing back to Derek again, who I've referenced a couple times, he talked about his own experience being, broke. He about to get evicted, and just saying, you know what, I'm going to meditate for 24 hours until I know if this spiritual stuff is BS or it's real, or, and his big download, his big realization, like, I forget, 18 hours into his meditation or something, was you've always made the mistake of thinking your abundance lies in money. And it's actually, that's not the source of your abundance. Your source of your abundance lies, that's sort of like a reflection of where the abundance comes from, right? And that really hit me as powerful. And how many people think, I've got to do this thing because I've got to get money because money is a source of abundance. No, your source of abundance. And in his case, a day later, 2 days later, I think he was an actor as well. And he moved into the state of pure awareness and understanding of this concept. And even though the bills were still there and he was still about to get evicted, he was completely calm and completely trusting that he would get what he needed. And then next thing you know, his agent, he hadn't talked to in years, called up and said, hey, I know you're too spiritual for commercials these days, but there's this Pepsi commercial. I think you'd be perfect for it. And voila, he went on the audition, got it, and made more money in 2 days than he'd ever made in a year. So it's a great sort of example of that. And I think when people can understand that perspective, money is not the source of your abundance. Getting in tune with your source and finding the flow of where you're meant to be, and trusting that you will get what you need, as you did in the case of just sort of, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust that. Every time I hear that story, it ends well for those who are doing it from the right space. And another quick thing I wanted to throw out before I forget, you were talking about how artistry comes through you. And I had another great interview a few weeks back with a guy named Grant Cameron, and he wrote a book called Inspired. That is, he's a well-known UFO researcher, and he's kind of been switching gears as he went down that rabbit hole to realize, wow, everything's consciousness. And, so his book demonstrates how many great works of art and notable discoveries came as downloads from during altered states or dreams. And so, I would recommend looking at him. Someone would be great for you to have on your show as well.
Yeah, there's a definite... my shows, what becomes difficult about my shows, since I do them in person, all the people who aren't in my immediate vicinity are just not, I can't have them on.
Right. That's right.
But I'm going to make a list of all these people that you're talking about.
Right. I think Derek might even be, you're in LA, right?
I just moved to Encinitas actually 3 weeks ago. Okay. So that's close to San Diego.
Oh, wow. You're not too far from me in Orange County then.
Okay. Yeah, no, not too far at all.
We should connect sometime.
Absolutely. I would love that. We should connect and have you on the live podcast, the deep dive.
Right. Exactly. I'm close enough. Let's do it.
Yeah. I think that for me, I have heard that a lot, and it's been my experience as well, which is that major works of art, novels and movies and stuff people have described, it's like it all kind of just came to me and I just had to write it down. And it's an understanding that, like, going a little bit more deep end, I believe that I believe in infinite possibility, meaning infinite realities, infinite timelines, everything that can happen, has happened, and will happen.
Me
you know
too.
what I mean? Like you and I have been brothers and
Yep.
enemies and like all kinds of stuff. And so with that belief, to me, then like Harry Potter is just
one of the
timeline.
that's one of the sorry to interrupt, but that's one of the examples in the book is J.K. Rowling came as a download on a train, the whole idea for Harry Potter.
And so what happens is that like you have this radio, this internal radio that we have, and we're turning it to stations all the time. If you are tuned to the frequency of, oh, I don't have any money and I have no abundance and life is hard, that's going to reflect back to you all the time. And all of the downloads that you get are going to be cut off, because in the state of, oh, life is hard, I don't have any abundance, you're also in a state of, I'm a victim and I have to do this alone, I have no help. And otherwise, you like when you're open and you say, okay, well, I'm open to receive. You can get an idea like the Harry Potter thing. And my belief is the whole Harry Potter, like that's history. That's a history book that happened somewhere in some crazy galaxy, universe, timeline, whatever you want to call it. And we're tuned to the channel that allows us to receive that memory. Yeah. And that's obviously a really deep esoteric belief that doesn't even impact, like whether you believe that or not, as people listening, like doesn't actually matter whether you think that Harry Potter happened or didn't happen in some alternate reality. What does matter is recognizing that all the people who have throughout history talked about when you're in a state of creativity, when you are in a state of receiving, when you are in a state of abundance, life gets easier. Ideas flow more freely, and abundance, financial abundance, friendships, romantic partnerships, business opportunities, they flow to you with greater and greater magnetism. And that's what I think is most important for people to tune into and turn on within themselves.
It's funny that you mentioned the idea of Harry Potter being a real thing. And, makes me instantly think of, speaking of ayahuasca as well, a guy I know who took ayahuasca like almost daily. This guy was on a whole nother level. He was a trip. And I was talking to him one time at Burning Man. I was having a conversation with him, and he's a far out guy to begin with, So of course I love chatting with him. And so I'm talking to him, and he's sitting there, and he's like, all of a sudden he just kind of gazes off and glazes over, and he goes, whoa, sorry, hold on, I just got something. He goes, one of my gifts is the ability to see people's composite makeup of their soul, right? And he goes, did you know that you're 5% Luke Skywalker and 3% of it is activated? And of course I laugh, and he's like, no, he's saying pretty much the same thing. He goes, no, everything that we think of, especially these stories that have so much energy around them, they're based off of real experiences, and it's a funny thing that he says that, because I can very much relate to that character. I mean, I even referenced earlier, talking about my son, I feel like sort of that very youthful, I can relate to that youthful energy that Luke was, or the hero's journey kind of vibe. And so it's funny that you mentioned that, because, that's the only other time that I've heard that. But I talk a lot about the same idea that, I say our life plays out at the corner of where free will meets destiny. So it's all already happened, right? Because time is an illusion. But then there's free will, is which version of it all are you going to experience? Is it going to be the version where, Brandon and Adam sync up on this particular Sunday, or they reschedule for another time, or they never connect at all, or right? And it all leads to different ripples and different experiences. So of course our aim becomes, first off, to know it's all already happened. So whatever you can dream up, imagine the greatest and grandest version of yourself. The good news is you've already done it on another channel, right? So your job becomes to get into vibrational alignment with the unfolding of that version. It's like popping in your favorite version of the movie, right? If there's all these alternative infinite endings, right? We want to experience the greatest and grandest version from this moment forward. And we've already done it.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're talking about is exactly my approach as well, which is just, you have lived there is a timeline that you and I never connected. There's a timeline where we have connected. There's a timeline where I'm a millionaire. There's a timeline where I get hit by a car at the age of 7, and don't live out the rest of my life. So like, all of those exist. And so when we come to simple decision making, like, oh, should I take this job offer or this job offer? Both of them have happened. Which is the timeline when we come into free will? Like, you're just picking the timeline of which you would like to see play out with your current focal point of consciousness. And I that's valuable, because instead of looking at it as, oh my God, if I don't, like, this opportunity will never come again, or this, and it becomes so like critical mass, this exact moment becomes everything. I see my entire life flash before my eyes if I'd make this decision or this decision. And really for me, it feels good to know, like, they're both available to me. Like, they've both happened on some level. Now I just get to play this one out and tune into the TV show that I most want.
Right. Television, right? And it is, and you can relax into it as well, because people so oftentimes think, oh, I missed the opportunity, the love of my life. I was such a fool at 22, or whatever. And I missed. It's like, no, the universe can deliver it to you, whatever that energy is that you seek, in such a myriad of ways. It is so creative and so capable of and malleable that you never really lose another opportunity to experience and attract the underlying essence of that which you seek.
Yeah. Have you seen Mr. Nobody with Jared Leto?
No, I don't think. Hold on. Maybe I have. I think I have, actually, now that you mention it. Yes.
It's super weird in a lot of ways, but it's also amazing because it tackles this concept of everything that has happened will happen. We've all been in different types of relationships with each other. And like, it tries to tackle infinite possibilities in film, in a film,
right? Which is, a little grandiose in scope, right?
But I thought they did. I thought they did a pretty good job.
It was good
of that. So I recommend that movie, and also The Fountain kind of covers. That movie is with Hugh Jackman, which is also an interesting exploration. That's more focused on like two souls and their journey through time.
Kind of like Cloud Atlas.
Similar to Cloud Atlas in concept. So it's a part of the collective. It's not everything that you and I are talking about right now. Everything that I say, I take absolutely no ownership of. You know what I mean?
No, I hear you.
Ancient stuff that has been around and will be around long after I'm gone. And we're just, what I do, speaking for myself, I apply these concepts into my own life and filter them through my lens, and then put them out for people who may resonate with the way I see the world and the way I articulate it and the way that I've been able to make it work for me. And absolutely, I think that you and I, for example, we're on the same team, and my audience isn't your audience. There may be overlap because of our similarities, and the people who want coaching from you, or the people who want coaching from me, or who want to sign up for a course or whatever, they're resonating with something at a deeper level because it's taking action, right? Like, to get someone who meets you to actually become a regular listener to your podcast is it requires a deep resonance with who you are in the world. And that's why I can have 1 million views on Facebook content and not have 1 million followers on my Facebook page. You know what I mean? Because there's just taking action from just, oh, I like this person, I like what they're about, and then going that next step is it's a big leap. And that's why it's so valuable to me to know that there's people like you out in the world who are also putting out the same message, so that people who may not want to be my Facebook friend or follower or podcast listener or group coaching client or whatever, they have another avenue to still get the message.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all family. It's all soul family. You know, I kind of say the way I envision it and describe it, it's, you know, if source is a tree, we happen to be on the same branch and leaves that are right in very close proximity. And so, but there's slight variations, right? And so if someone happens to be closer to my leaf than your leaf, then it's going to have more resonance for whatever reason, maybe even reasons that no one understands other than, you know, pure energetic, vibrational, you know, and you're right. It's our obviously we speak very similarly. There's a lot of crossover in everything that you're saying and what I'm saying. And so here we are, of course, bumping up against one another on the show and connecting because it is so close. But I love that too. It really, and I always say this to anyone who's an artist and having been a you know, musician in a band for many, many years as well, and done that whole thing. Whatever you're putting out to the world, whether your art or podcast is an art or business or whatever it is, just do it from the most authentic place. And whoever is in vibrational resonance with it, they can't help but find it and connect to it because it's such a match. It's you know, it's like a magnet, right? And so you can relax about what the results are as much because it's so easy for all of us, you know, I'm sure, you know, podcast host as well. When I just hit 1 million downloads recently, you know, I'm like, yes, I hit 1 million downloads, you know, and it's so easy for us to think and focus on that. And if I don't hit 1 million, then what does that mean? Am I not good enough? And anyone out there listening who has the idea, and, you know, I've inspired several other people to do podcasts, and I love that. And my advice to them, or, you know, any artist making music or painting or any of that, you know, if we can move into a space of, hey, I'm doing it and I know exactly who's in resonance will find it. If it's one person, awesome. If it's 1 billion people, really awesome, right? That's a different kind of ride. Right. So, but, you know, having that sort of, that healthy sense of, you know, I even think back to my band originally. We had so much fun originally. And then it turned into, we've got to make it. We got to, you know, get signed. At the time, you know, this is like around 2000 and major labels are still a big deal. And, you know, all these other bands we play with are blowing up and, you know, we've got to make it. We've got to make it. And then it kind of like obstructed, it took the joy out of it, right? So I think that's an important piece for people is like, because I know for me, I can get, you know, I'd be lying if I said I didn't check my Facebook, my download stats daily, right? But it becomes like, and then I have to remind myself, hey, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, I'm very blessed that it's continued to go in a really good direction. But you know what? If it was one person that I'm helping, that's really, really beautiful too. And so I think that's an important piece.
Yeah, and in the digital age, it becomes harder and harder because now we're just looking at numbers. Like I tell people all the time, because I've had a few friends essentially who have stepped into coaching, and then we'll put out a video and they'll get like 150 views on it, and they'll be like, "I'm so bummed out. Like I feel like no one's watching the video." And I'm like, well, you have 150 views. Can you imagine? And I know that views could be 3-second views. So I get that. But for the sake of this, like, can you imagine if 150 got into a room to listen to you speak? Yeah. Like you would be thrilled. And yet because of the digital age and the age of, you know, we're just looking at numbers. And so it's like, 1 million downloads, but there are this, you know, the Joe Rogan podcast gets 3 million episode or whatever, right?
Exactly.
And so it's super easy to do that. And I think that's why a big thing for me is I still love one-on-one and small group work, and I love doing live performances, and I love receiving messages from actual people, because that makes it realer to me. I can have 130,000 views on a spoken word piece, and that doesn't mean as much as when I go to I'm putting on a one-man show in Encinitas on April 22nd, actually, and cool. Having gone, I was brought up to San Francisco to perform, and seeing people like have tears in their eyes, and people come up to me and just choked up about how much it meant to them to hear that poem performed. And like that one person who's having that emotional experience impacts me at a greater level than being like, oh, wow.
Fuels your next 10 poems, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, my podcast is relatively new. I've done no marketing for it or anything. So I honestly have no idea how to grow a podcast. I'm just enjoying it and continuing to put it out. And I had, in my most recent small group coaching, I had the question on the application, how did you hear about this? And half of the people heard about it from the podcast.
Cool.
So I get way more viewership through Facebook or Instagram, and the people who are listening to the podcast, they're the ones who are feeling me at a deeper level.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
And so recognizing we don't want 1 billion followers. We want the handful of like really loyal, active community.
You want to impact lives. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that in the digital age of digital entrepreneurship and branding, it can be really easy to forget that those 500 views you got on that video, there's real people that those numbers represent, that
yeah.
And a number of them may have been very impacted by what you put out. So
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for me, getting messages from people, how this podcast has changed their life or helped them in some way, it is the most rewarding thing, I've done. And I always say, guys, when you give me a review or feedback, it fuels my fire, them completing that circle of love, so to speak, that I'm putting out. And obviously you're doing the exact same thing. I don't know how long ago you launched yours, but I did the exact same thing. I had no real marketing approach or anything. It just was coming from such a place of pure intention. And, it just kind of has continued ever since to grow sort of exponentially. And I'm super blessed to have had that experience. And
out of my own curiosity, was there a point where it really was there a point where it shifted into like an exponential growth phase, or has it just been like a steady increase the entire time?
It's been pretty steady. It's been, just looking at it, probably, it's probably been 600% a year or something like that. It's just been very slow and steady. I can look at my statistics and it's every month is bigger than the month before. And it just seems to, I'll hit a plateau every now and then it'll spike way up in a given day. And then it sort of like readjusts, but yet it's at a higher average than it was maybe, the month before. And amazing. So it's been very much that way. And I think for me, one of the things that I've done is, I put out 5 a week. And I think that's helped to really, I say it's one thing to talk about the stuff and live it. But it's a daily conscious effort, it's like soul food. And so I do, I get up in the morning and turn on the mic, and whatever's kind of bubbling up, I'll start talking about. And I think that's helped a lot, just to give you a little feedback. I
just started doing so I do an interview essentially every week, and I'm really blessed to have some amazing people in my, just in the personal development community that I'm involved with. And then on top of that, I just recently started doing an extra one a week, which is just me solo, which I call deep dive musings, where I just kind of just dive into what's on my mind at that given time, or questions that may have been, emailed to me or seem to be showing up in the collective. And I'm enjoying those too, because I feel like it's a chance for me to explore it's almost like audio journaling.
That's exactly right. For me, I always started off with just interviews for the first, 4 or 5 months or so, once a week. And then I was like, okay, this is great. And I'm getting to talk to some amazing people, but I have so much to say. And I find myself like talking over people probably too much because I'm so excited. So, okay, I need an outlet. So I started doing the dailies, and that really is when things started growing exponentially, I would say.
Well, that's amazing, Brandon. We have similar, because I did months of just once a week interviews, and just recently, maybe like this month, started putting out the musings. So I'm just going to keep copying you. Maybe I'll do it every time.
Well, as you said, there's no new information. It's like we're obviously tapping into a very we're hatching from a very similar egg, so to speak, or the branch. We're on the same branch for sure. No question. After talking to you here today, and one of the things that I looked at your podcast and noticed one of your first musings was about synchronicity, and that leads me to, of course, one of my favorite topics is synchronicity. And a question I ask everyone I have on the show is a story of personal story of synchronicity, serendipity, positive paranormal event.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I in that podcast, I give two examples of synchronicity, one smaller, one bigger. And so if anyone's interested on more, they can listen to that, but I'm going to give a different one entirely right now.
Cool.
I had, okay. So since we spoke at length about ayahuasca at the beginning of this, I'll have you know that my first ayahuasca ceremony was filled with a number of synchronistic events on even how I wound up there. And I went in the first night and had a crazy experience that blew my mind and had some synchronicity because I'm a skeptic by nature. And so even when I have this, oh my gosh, this past life and this, I'll still find ways where I need to verify it somehow for my intellectual mind to be okay.
Healthy skepticism is good too.
Yeah. And so going into the second night, I was really, really terrified. I had a really powerful intention ahead of me, and I went into it with a lot of trepidation, and I wound up during that ceremony in what I call like a battle for my soul. It was a really intense experience, dark night of the soul kind of thing. And at a certain point, I look up and I see Melinda, and we'd been together, I think maybe 5 years at this point. And I see her face clear as day, just looking down from the like darkness. And she says to me, "It's going to be okay." And that made me feel better and helped me through that really tough experience I was going through. And there was this deep knowingness that this wasn't like a vision. This was real. This is tangible. This is happening. She's talking to me. And so I went home that next morning and I walk in the door and she goes, "Hey, how?" And I go, "Shh, no, stop. Did you feel me last night? I visited you and you told me it was going to be okay." And her face goes completely white and she explains to me her night where she tried to go to bed early, like 9 or 10 o'clock, and she'd been in bed and could not sleep because the energy was just so intense in the room. And she was like tossing and turning, and like, she just felt like something. And then she took the dog out and came back in. And when she went back into the room, it felt like someone was there, and she got super scared. And our dog, Saren, was reacting as if someone was in the room, which caused her to freak out even more. And she didn't know what to do. And so she got on the phone with a friend who's like, "Oh yeah, like Adam's," she's like, "I feel like Adam's in like a really tough thing." She knew I was scared, and she called a friend and she's like, "Yeah, just, you guys are so connected. You know what I mean? You're so connected. It wouldn't surprise me that you're feeling some of what he's going through." And she's like, "Just be there for him." And she's like, "Okay," and got off the phone and walked back into the bedroom among this like feeling that she felt. And she just like closed her eyes and she said, "It's going to be okay," out loud into the room, and then like walked out of the room. And it was the only thing that she said out loud into the room where she felt my difficulty. And it was the only thing that I saw her and heard her say to me in my ayahuasca ceremony. And for me to walk into the house and tell her, "I visited you, you said this," and have her tell me that she said that out loud, like, it was a piece that was enough for me to go, okay, I've seen enough synchronicity. I'm a believer now. It was enough to convert me into I believe. So that's my story of synchronicity.
That is a pretty cool one. I've hear a lot of amazing stories, and I love that story because, of course, we started off the conversation not really intending, without an intention of my own being to go into ayahuasca or to discuss that at all with you. And of course, we started out talking about that, and of course, the synchronicity moments before that, a listener randomly messages me asking about ayahuasca, and or on our Facebook group asking, "Hey, is there anything where I can, I'm really feeling drawn and called to this?" And so apparently there's some people out there who need to hear about this plant medicine at this time, right? And so what a great validation and powerful. I mean, some of the stories, I'd be curious. I mean, you mentioned past lives, and that's a one that I find really interesting, just out of my own curiosity. Is that an experience that you had? That seems to be one that's a theme for a lot of people, where they'll have experienced past life recollection in the journey space. Is that one that happened for you as well?
Yes, it did. I think maybe 2 or 3 of them have involved some form of past life work and understanding. Not every single one, but
right.
it's interesting. It can be. I always say what is real, right? Like if you're having an emotional experience when you're being told about a past life and you're crying because it feels like you're understanding a part of why you are the way you are, that emotional experience is not any less real than if like you were watching a movie or like interacting with another human being. Do you know what I mean? Like, so totally that the impact that it's having, because that's one of the biggest things I get from like my old friends back home who are not on this path, who are just like, you're just making it all up, right? Like it's all placebo effect or whatever. And I love when they throw the placebo effect out there, because the placebo effect you can use as a way to try and invalidate the truth of my experience. But the placebo effect to me is an acknowledgement of the power of the mind to create your reality. And that's the foundational basis. So past lives have played a major, major role in my journeys and my life, actually taking them back into my life and healing some of the stuff that I have helped others heal through past lives, because past life regression was something that I started to tap into and read for others, actually. Not often, but when it I would get something really powerful very quickly. And
interesting.
When I started doing that and recognizing the ability to heal what they're going through in life currently based off of helping them heal a past life experience, that's really that's the most important thing to me. The past life doesn't matter at all. It's the fact that
what's the benefit in this life? Yeah.
Can people receive benefit from healing past life trauma? And the answer that I've seen in my own life and in the life of my clients is yes, 100%. So that's the importance to me.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, talking about the placebo, I always say, I believe we'll get to the other side and we'll realize everything was a placebo. It's all placebo effect. Every medicine, I think of Bashar. I don't know if you're familiar with Bashar. He talks about permission slips. Whatever permission slip you need to sort of get the result, to create the experience, whatever story you need to tell, whatever, it's all sort of permission slips and placebos. And I think that resonates with me. And, I know we're running low on time here, Adam, but I'm curious, you care to share one of your past life recollections and how it helped you in this reality? I would say, more than any specific past life recollection and going into that, I will say that I had a experience the night I was telling you about earlier, where as I was kind of having this battle, all these past lives started flooding to me. And they started flooding to me, and I started seeing them almost like a trailer for a movie, all these different lives. And I couldn't understand why I was seeing that. And then I realized, each one of those lives had provided me with something that was
giving me the strength to be with what I was experiencing in that moment.
Wow.
And so I saw myself, like as a farmer who his wife had passed away, who had no kids, just really humble life, standing on like this porch, looking out at a field of wheat. And it's just like nothing, not one of those like, oh, I was a pharaoh in Egypt type experience.
Right,
just this really simple. And it came very clearly, like, this is a life you learn humility.
Right.
And then I saw a life as some sort of South American, like rebel type, in the back of a like Jeep or truck, with an automatic weapon, and feeling all the people who I had killed just mercilessly, and sobbing and recognizing, not the reason I was sobbing was also recognizing when I dropped into that life, how much pain I was experiencing to even be able to do that to other human beings. Like the amount of pain that was within me that was just being put out to others in the form of killing and stuff. And so all of these experiences, these past lives, were just a part of, and recognizing the infiniteness of my soul. And so in that moment, it gave me strength to recognize I have experienced so much, and I can call on whatever I want to call on, because there's a big difference between feeling like you need obstacles to let you know how strong you are versus knowing that you are infinitely strong, and the obstacles are simply ways for you to see that reflected back to you.
Right.
So it's a nuanced difference. And past lives in that moment, for example, gave me a lot of understanding and benefit.
Wow. Yeah, it makes me think of a little bit of, have you read this story, the short story, The Egg?
I have. It's one of my favorites.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah.
So good.
It makes me think of that, basically we have to go through every single life that exists, and then that's the beginning, right? We get to be born into the next level, and it's like, wow. So you've been the guy on the back of the truck. You've been Hitler.
We are absolutely the same. Like I believe at a certain point, my soul is living your life. You know what I mean? Like, so we're just the same soul interacting with itself. So it's just a game, man. It's a game. And I think that we get the opportunity to create whatever we want to create in this world and live it to its absolute fullest. And that looks different to everyone, but that's what we're here to do, is experience this human experience.
Yep. Well, extension of self, other me. It's been quite the pleasure to play yet again. I look forward to our future experiences and coming on your show, and I'm sure there will be some new people tuning in to the Deep Dive podcast. You definitely are cut from the same cloth, and such a privilege.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on, man. If anyone wants any more info about what I do, adamroa.com, ADAMROA. And then the Deep Dive podcast is my love right now. I'm not quite at the Brandon level, but I'm excited to copy you.
Well,
and see how that works in my life.
Is that like a trick statement? Hold on, aren't you me? Like, what's going on here?
Right?
You've already done it. The Deep Dive podcast is already this huge success, right?
Awesome.
In the timeless eternal now. So keep on doing what you're doing, Adam. I do have one last question for you. I always open with the same question and end with the same question. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Adam Roa?
Ooh, the meaning of life. The meaning of life for me is to experience the human existence as deeply and fully as we can.
Beautiful. And it's apparent that you are, and you're doing it. You're leading by example, which is the most powerful way to lead. I appreciate you, Adam, so much, and look forward to visiting you on your show and connecting in 3D again.
Yeah, absolutely, Brandon. Thank you very much, man. I enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise, my friend. Until next time, journey well. Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. If you have enjoyed this positive download from our hearts and minds to yours, please take a minute, give us a rating or review on iTunes. Since iTunes is the holy grail of all things podcasting, your good reviews help us to reach more listeners. Also, we would be extremely appreciative if you would tell your friends and family about the show. Our sincere intent with the Positive Head podcast is to spread positivity to the world because we're selfish, quite honestly. I say that jokingly, but really only halfway joking. I'm referring to the good kind of selfish based on the knowing that we all get what we give in this life, because when we give, we're actually always giving to extensions of self, since we're all really one in the same consciousness, just in different bodies. So if you want to be a good selfish along with us by helping to spread the positivity, by all means, please proceed to shout about the Positive Head podcast from your rooftop. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.